Tensions are rising in the Persian Gulf, and both sides are signaling readiness. As the United States moves warships toward Iran, Tehran is responding not with words alone, but with hardware, according to Iranian state media and regional reports. Iranian state media says the Shahid Bagheri has been sent to operate near the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical oil choke points through which a significant portion of global petroleum trade passes. Iran's state TV aired footage showing drones on deck, though the full operational loadout cannot be independently verified from the video alone. Iranian officials framed it as a deterrent message, warning they would respond if attacked. Analysts interpret the timing as Iran signaling options in response to the U.S. buildup, though the actual operational status and capabilities of the vessel remain subject to verification. The development comes as Trump said the USS Abraham Lincoln strike group is heading toward the region, with Trump describing what he called a beautiful armada heading toward Iran. The convergence of American naval power and Iranian countermeasures creates conditions that regional observers are watching closely. Open source reporting has described the Shahid Bagheri as a converted container ship around 42,000 tons and roughly 240 meters long. According to Iranian state reports, the vessel has been transformed into what Iran calls a floating drone base for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, though these characterizations come from Iranian sources rather than independent verification. Iranian state-linked reports claim it can support multiple drone types and additional small craft, but those capacities are not independently verified. Iranian sources describe weapon systems including anti-ship missiles, short-range air defenses, and rapid-fire cannons, though these specifications represent Iranian claims rather than confirmed capabilities. The conversion of a civilian vessel into a military platform reflects Iran's approach of adapting available resources for military purposes, according to defense analysts who track Iranian capabilities. This approach emphasizes practicality and cost-effectiveness over the development of purpose-built military vessels that would be more expensive and time-consuming to produce. What has drawn attention from military analysts is not the size of the ship, but the strategy behind it, according to defense experts cited by media. Iran's military doctrine reportedly relies on what analysts describe as swarm warfare, the concept of launching large numbers of low-cost drones simultaneously with the aim of overwhelming defensive systems through sheer volume rather than individual capability. As defense analysts have noted, the theory behind swarm tactics is that if enough platforms are launched quickly enough, some will reach their targets regardless of defensive capabilities. This approach represents an asymmetric strategy designed to offset the technological advantages of more sophisticated adversaries. The mathematics of defense, limited interceptors facing numerous attackers, potentially favors the attacking side in such scenarios, according to military analysts. Iranian military planners have reportedly studied the challenges that modern air defense systems face when confronted with large numbers of simultaneous targets, according to analysts who track Iranian doctrine. Whether the Shahid Bagheri can effectively implement this doctrine at sea remains untested. The Strait of Hormuz represents one of the world's most critical maritime choke points, according to energy analysts. A significant portion of global oil trade passes through this narrow waterway connecting the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the broader Indian Ocean. Any disruption to shipping through the strait would have consequences for global energy markets. Iranian state media reports position the Shahid Bagheri near this strategic location, which analysts interpret as sending a message about Tehran's options for affecting commerce through the strait if conflict erupts. Iran has historically indicated that it views the ability to influence shipping through Hormuz as a form of leverage, particularly during periods of tension with the United States. The geographic reality of the region means that vessels transiting the strait must pass through waters where Iranian forces can potentially operate. The reported deployment of a drone carrier in this area would add another capability to Iran's existing options, according to defense analysts, though the actual operational effectiveness of the vessel remains untested in any real scenario. Some regional reporting suggests shifts in IRGC posture along the southern coast, but this cannot be independently verified. The reporting signals what analysts describe as a broader defensive and potentially offensive posture, though the specifics of any reinforcement remain unclear from available information. The IRGC, which operates parallel to Iran's conventional military, controls many of Iran's asymmetric capabilities, including missiles, drones, and fast attack boats, according to analysts who track Iranian military organization. Any reinforcement of coastal areas would position these capabilities closer to the Strait of Hormuz and the waters where American naval forces operate. Iranian military doctrine emphasizes coastal defense and the ability to threaten shipping and naval forces operating near Iranian waters, according to defense analysts. The reported deployments, if accurate, would be consistent with this doctrine, positioning forces where they could respond to any military action against Iran. Trump said the USS Abraham Lincoln strike group is heading toward the region, according to his public statements. Trump has described the deployment in characteristically vivid terms, referring to what he called a beautiful armada floating toward Iran and indicating that another fleet may be following. Trump says the buildup is precautionary, while Iran characterizes it as intimidation, reflecting the competing narratives that each side offers about the other's military movements. The American deployment provides Washington with military options, while also serving as a demonstration of capability and resolve. In public statements, Trump claimed last year's strikes, what he called Operation Midnight Hammer, severely damaged Iran's nuclear sites, but assessments of the impact vary. Trump claimed Iran was close to a nuclear weapon. Independent assessments are disputed, and details remain contested. These claims represent Trump's characterization of events rather than independently verified assessments. Trump has posted messages describing the fleet as larger than one previously sent toward Venezuela and ready to strike with what he called speed and violence if necessary, according to his public communications. His message to Tehran has been characterized as blunt: come to the table, make a deal, no nuclear weapons. Trump has warned that time is running out. The rhetoric from Washington combines military threat with stated preference for negotiation, a pattern that has characterized Trump's approach to Iran throughout the current tensions. The Armada provides leverage for diplomacy while also positioning forces for potential military action if negotiations fail, or if Trump determines that military force is necessary. Trump's invocation of previous military operations and warnings about future action represent the coercive dimension of American policy, according to analysts. The approach aims to pressure Iran into concessions while demonstrating that the United States has both the capability and the stated willingness to use military force. Iran's foreign minister has responded to American pressure by saying that Iran has not requested negotiations with Washington and has had no recent contact with the U.S. special envoy, according to Iranian official statements reported by media. He says talks cannot happen under threat, a position that reflects Iran's consistent stance that it will not negotiate while being coerced. The Iranian position rejects the American approach of combining military pressure with calls for negotiation. From Tehran's perspective, according to Iranian officials, negotiations conducted under military threat would amount to capitulation rather than genuine diplomacy. This framing presents Iran as defending its dignity and sovereignty rather than refusing reasonable diplomatic overtures. The disconnect between American and Iranian positions on the conditions for negotiation represents a significant obstacle to diplomatic resolution, according to analysts. Washington believes pressure creates incentive for negotiation, while Tehran insists that pressure makes negotiation impossible. Bridging this gap would require one side or the other to adjust its position. Senior Iranian commanders are issuing warnings about the consequences of military action, according to Iranian media reports. Rear Admiral Habibullah Sayari says any act of adventurism against Iran will come at a heavy cost, according to statements reported by Iranian outlets. He accuses the United States of what he calls gunboat diplomacy, using massive warships to project fear. Sayari says Iran is fully prepared to respond across land, sea, and air, according to the reported statements. This messaging emphasizes Iranian readiness while characterizing American deployments as intimidation rather than legitimate security measures. The framing presents Iran as a defender against aggression rather than a provocateur. Iran's leadership argues that advanced technology alone does not decide wars, according to Iranian official statements, pointing to past conflicts as proof of what they describe as Iranian resilience and capability. This messaging is designed both for domestic audiences and for American observers, suggesting that military superiority does not guarantee success against a determined adversary. Turkey is urging Washington to reduce pressure and resolve disputes with Iran one issue at a time, starting with the nuclear file, according to statements from Turkish officials reported by media. Ankara warns that sweeping demands could humiliate Iranian officials and push the region closer to another war, according to Turkish diplomatic messaging. Turkey's foreign minister says Iran is open to nuclear talks but opposes any foreign military intervention, calling renewed conflict destabilizing for the entire Middle East, according to reported statements. The Turkish position reflects concerns from regional powers about the consequences of U.S.-Iran conflict for neighboring countries. The Turkish foreign minister reportedly advised American officials to close files one by one with the Iranians, starting with nuclear issues before moving to other matters. If you put them all as a package, it will be very difficult for our Iranian friends to digest, the minister reportedly said. It sometimes might seem humiliating for them. It will be very difficult to explain not only to themselves but also to the leadership on the streets of Tehran. Across the region, concern is growing about the potential for conflict between the United States and Iran, according to reports from regional capitals. Countries in the Gulf and broader Middle East understand that any military exchange could affect them directly through disrupted shipping, economic consequences, or potential targeting if they are perceived as supporting either side. The rhetoric is visible in Iran, according to media reports describing the domestic scene. Anti-U.S. billboards reportedly appear on busy intersections. Newspapers carry headlines about the situation. One message reportedly reads, "If you sow the wind, you will reap the whirlwind." This public messaging reflects and reinforces Iranian positioning while preparing the population for various scenarios. As warships move, diplomats work, and positions harden, the question is not just whether talks will happen, but whether the current trajectory can be changed, according to regional observers. With forces on the move and warnings from both sides, the margin for miscalculation is narrowing, analysts note. The strategic logic behind Iran's reported drone carrier deployment reflects an understanding of what analysts call asymmetric advantage. Low-cost drones produced in large numbers can potentially impose costs on adversaries that exceed the cost of the drones themselves. A defensive missile that costs millions of dollars used to counter a drone costing thousands represents an unfavorable exchange rate for the defender, according to this analysis. This calculus has reportedly informed Iranian investment in drone technology, according to analysts who track Iranian military development. Tehran has prioritized drones as a capability that can threaten sophisticated adversaries without requiring the massive investments necessary for conventional military parity. The Shahid Bagheri, if operational as described, would represent a platform for projecting this capability at sea. The mathematics of swarm warfare favor the attacker in scenarios where defensive systems face saturation, according to military analysts. While modern naval defenses are sophisticated, they have finite ammunition and processing capacity. The theory behind Iranian doctrine, analysts note, is that overwhelming numbers can create opportunities that individual high-quality platforms cannot. The potential effectiveness of drone warfare against naval targets has been demonstrated in recent conflicts, according to analysts who point to the Houthi campaign in the Red Sea. International reporting says Houthi attacks disrupted Red Sea shipping and drove rerouting, while exact totals of damage and losses vary by source. The Houthi campaign forced major shipping companies to reroute vessels around Africa rather than transit the Red Sea, imposing significant costs on global commerce. The ability of relatively unsophisticated actors to affect international shipping with drones and missiles has informed analysis of what more capable actors like Iran might achieve. Iranian military planners have presumably studied the Red Sea campaign and drawn lessons about the vulnerability of shipping to drone and missile attacks, according to analysts. The reported Shahid Bagheri deployment positions similar capabilities at another critical choke point, suggesting Iran may be prepared to implement lessons from the Houthi experience if conflict erupts. The challenge facing American naval defenses in a swarm scenario is fundamentally mathematical, according to defense analysts. Each ship carries a limited number of defensive missiles. Each engagement requires ammunition that cannot be immediately replaced at sea. A sustained attack with large numbers of inexpensive platforms could theoretically exhaust defensive stocks. Modern naval air defense systems are sophisticated, analysts note, but they were designed primarily to counter aircraft and cruise missiles rather than large numbers of small drones. The evolution of drone technology has created new challenges that existing systems are being adapted to address. But the adaptation is ongoing, and the outcome of any actual engagement remains uncertain. Iranian propaganda videos have made claims about overwhelming American defenses through saturation attacks. While the specific technical claims in such videos have not been independently verified, the underlying concept of saturation attacks is taken seriously by military analysts as a legitimate concern for naval planners. Iranian officials describe their country as prepared to respond to any attack across all domains, land, sea, and air, according to statements reported by Iranian media. This messaging emphasizes comprehensive readiness while suggesting that any conflict would not remain limited to a single domain or geographic area. The reported deployment of the Shahid Bagheri represents what Iran describes as the naval component of this stated readiness. Iranian land-based missiles and air defenses would constitute other dimensions of any response, according to Iranian official statements. The message to potential adversaries is that attacking Iran would trigger a multi-domain response. This posture is consistent with Iranian deterrence doctrine, which emphasizes threatening to impose unacceptable costs on any attacker. By demonstrating capabilities across multiple domains and suggesting that responses would be severe and widespread, Iran aims to convince adversaries that the costs of military action would exceed any potential benefits, analysts note. The diplomatic situation remains stalemated as positions harden on both sides, according to analysts tracking the crisis. Washington demands that Iran come to the table and make concessions on its nuclear program. Tehran insists it will not negotiate under military threat and has not requested talks. The gap between these positions shows no sign of narrowing. Turkey and other regional powers have attempted to offer frameworks for resolution, suggesting step-by-step approaches that might allow both sides to claim progress without humiliation. However, the maximalist positions being taken by both Washington and Tehran leave limited room for the compromises that such approaches would require. The combination of military buildup and diplomatic stalemate creates conditions where events could move toward escalation through momentum or miscalculation rather than deliberate decision, analysts warn. As forces position and rhetoric intensifies, the window for diplomatic resolution may be narrowing. The Persian Gulf remains a focal point for global attention, according to regional analysts characterizing the current situation. The combination of American naval power, Iranian asymmetric capabilities, and the strategic importance of the Strait of Hormuz creates conditions that all parties are watching closely. The stakes extend far beyond the immediate parties. Global energy markets depend on the flow of oil through the strait. Shipping companies and their insurers are monitoring developments closely. Countries throughout the region face potential consequences from any military exchange, whether through direct involvement or economic disruption. What happens next may depend on the decisions made by leaders in Washington and Tehran, as analysts characterize the situation. The reported deployment of Iranian capabilities in American carriers creates a confrontation where both sides have demonstrated resolve. The question is whether either side will find a path to de-escalation or whether the current trajectory continues. The messaging from Tehran is being characterized as consistent by observers tracking Iranian communications. Iranian officials warn they will respond if attacked. This is the essence of Iranian messaging during the current crisis, according to analysts interpreting Iranian statements. The reported positioning of the Shahid Bagheri near the Strait of Hormuz puts hardware behind the rhetoric, demonstrating that Iran has capabilities it describes as ready to deploy. Whether the vessel and its drones would prove effective in actual combat remains untested, but their reported presence sends a message about Iranian intentions and preparation. For American naval planners, the reported deployment adds another factor to consider in any operational planning. The combination of land-based missiles, fast attack boats, and now a reported dedicated drone carrier creates multiple potential threat vectors that would need to be addressed in any military scenario. This complexity is part of Iranian deterrence strategy, analysts note. The margin for miscalculation is narrowing, according to analysts characterizing the current situation. With forces on the move, drone carriers reportedly deployed, and warnings issued from both sides, the conditions exist for events to escalate through accident or misunderstanding rather than deliberate choice. Both sides have stated their positions and signaled their capabilities. The United States has deployed significant naval power and issued warnings. Iran has reportedly positioned its drone carrier and declared readiness to respond to any attack. The remaining space for diplomatic resolution exists, but appears to be narrowing as military dynamics create their own momentum. Regional powers are calling for restraint and step-by-step approaches to resolving disputes. Whether these calls will be heard amid the competing pressures of military